Head report presente. 10 things you, probably, didn't know about your mind. Scientists are continually discovering new things about the human brain, yet it remains a subject shrouded in mystery. These 15 facts are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to studying the brain, but they shed light on some important aspects of the brain. It's crazy to think that something that is mostly water controls all 7 billion people in the world, and that there are 100 billion neurons working constantly to keep us all functioning. Plus, your brain generates enough energy to power a light bulb, which gives a whole new meaning to the symbol of a light bulb appearing above someone's head when they get an idea. If nothing else, after reading this you'll finally understand why yawning is contagious. What do you think is the most interesting fact about the human brain? 1. Human brains are big. The average adult brain weighs just under 3 pounds, between 1.3 and 1.4 kilograms. Some neurosurgeons describe the texture of a living brain as that of toothpaste, but according to neurosurgeon Katrina Furlick, a better analogy can be found in the local health food store. If you aren't charmed by that description, consider this. About 80% of the contents of your cranium is brain, while equal amounts of blood and cerebrospinal fluid, the clear liquid that buffers neural tissue, make up the rest. If you were to blend up all of that brain, blood and fluid, it would come to about 1.7 liters, or not quite enough to fill a 2-liter soda bottle. 2. Natural alarm clock. We all know someone who claims to have a natural alarm clock that wakes them up exactly when they need to. I don't need an alarm. I am an alarm, they'd say casually, before you proceed to shut them down with research on how that's not possible. If you actually look into it, though, you'd realize that they aren't kidding. The natural body alarm clock is quite real and is as good, if not better, than any alarm money can buy. Provided that you have a regular sleeping schedule you stick to, as most of us who have jobs do, the inbuilt alarm clock of the body is quite effective at waking you up before the stipulated time. As per research, it works due to stress hormones released by the brain a few hours before your wake-up time. 2. They allow you to gradually wake up without being abruptly interrupted by the real alarm clock, indicating that the brain subconsciously hates alarms as much as us. You don't need to do anything special to activate it other than sticking to a set schedule, either. This is why routine office-goers often find themselves waking up minutes before the alarm is set to go off. 3. Listen and learn during sleep. We understand sleep as a time of partial shutdown for the brain. We certainly don't expect the brain to have any of its regular abilities while we're sleeping, especially the ones that allow it to encode learned information on the basis of sensory cues. Surprisingly, the brain is capable of doing exactly that, as long as it happens during the REM phase. In a study published in Nature Communications, they put 20 volunteers to sleep and played acoustic patterns at them in all stages of their sleep. They were then asked to identify the same patterns when they woke up. They found that the subjects could identify the sound patterns heard during the REM phase but didn't recognize the ones from other, deeper phases of sleep. 3. Now, it certainly doesn't mean that you can study for your tests while you sleep, but it disproves the previously held notion that the brain is unable to pick up new information when it's sleeping. 4. Teen brains aren't fully formed. Adolescent attitude stems, in part, from the vagaries of brain development. The gray matter of the brain peaks just before puberty and is pruned back down throughout adolescence, with some of the most dramatic development happening in the frontal lobes, the seat of judgment and decision-making. A 2005 study published in the journal Child Development found that the parts of the brain responsible for multitasking don't fully mature until we're 16 or 17 years old. And research presented at the BA Festival of Science in 2006 revealed that teens also have a neural excuse for self-centeredness. When considering an action that would affect others, teens were less likely than adults to use the medial prefrontal cortex, an area associated with empathy and guilt. Teens learn empathy by practicing socializing, the researchers said. So much for grounding them until they're 20. 5. Autopilot mode. On especially hectic workdays, we all wonder if there's a way to put ourselves on auto mode. How awesome would it be to just zone out and let your body take over? Other than your full attention, it already has all the parts needed to complete the job. You'd be surprised to know, then, that the brain doesn't just have an autopilot mode of its own, but it's much better at a given task than the active part of the brain. Studies have found that once you get good at something, the brain relegates the processing of that task to a separate brain region called default mode network, DMN, which deals with subconscious processing. In one of those studies, 28 subjects were asked to play a card game that required a bit of learning and monitored their brain activity. Things went as expected at first, though when they got sufficiently good at the game, it got shifted from the active regions to the DMN. Their responses became faster and much more accurate, too. 6. It's the reason why some tasks, like playing an instrument, are more difficult to do when you consciously think about them, though only if you know how to play that instrument, obviously. 6. Predict the future. The interaction between the eyes and the brain has been a topic of interest among neuroscientists for quite some time now, and not just for fun's sake. Properly mapping out the pathways between our eyes and how the brain processes that information can help millions of people suffering from a variety of diseases. It would also give us more of an insight into how the visual processing part of the brain actually works. While there will be some time before it's completely understood, we've made some key discoveries in the past few years, one of them being the brain's ability to predict the immediate future. In a study, researchers found that because of the delay in the information from the eye to the brain, it forms its own predictions of what's going to happen next, which get more accurate with age. It bases it on previous behavior, like the known trajectory of a ball, and does it before we can consciously figure it out. 7. So, in essence, we're always slightly looking into the future, which helps us avoid injury or death by subconsciously predicting potentially threatening events. 7.360 degree awareness. It has been speculated, in horror movies as well as real life, that people have a sixth sense when it comes to knowing if someone is watching them from behind. You're supposed to feel uneasy, start sweating, and feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It's thought of as a vestigial sense from our hunter-gatherer days, though it's absolutely not. The actual reason it happens is that we're perfectly able to observe all 360 degrees of our surroundings. If the eyes seem to be limited by the scope of their field of vision compared to other animals, it's because the brain doesn't need to be able to look behind. It has other, better means of making a full-scale 3D model of our surroundings. Studies have found that our sense of hearing is quite accurate at detecting even the slightest shift in our surroundings, especially the parts we can't see. 8. That, combined with our other senses, provide the brain with a largely accurate view of all 360 degrees of what's around us. 8. Wrinkles make us smart. What's the secret to our species' smarts? The answer may be wrinkles. The surface of the human brain is convoluted by deep fissures, smaller grooves called sulci, and ridges called gyri. This surface is called the cerebral cortex and is home to about 100 billion neurons, or nerve cells. The folded, meandering surface allows the brain to pack in more surface area, and thus, more processing power, into the limited confines of the skull. Our primate relatives show varying degrees of convolution in their brains, as do other intelligent creatures like elephants. In fact, research done by Emory University neuroscientist Lori Marino has found that dolphins have even more pronounced brain wrinkles than humans. 9. Brains never stop changing. Scientific wisdom once held that once you hit adulthood, your brain lost all ability to form new neural connections. This ability, called plasticity, was thought to be confined to infancy and childhood. Wrong. A 2007 study on a stroke patient found that her brain had adapted to the damage to nerves carrying visual information by pulling similar information from other nerves. This followed several studies showing that adult mice could form new neurons. Later studies found more evidence of human neurons making new connections into adulthood. Meanwhile, research on meditation showed that intense mental training can change both the structure and function of the brain. 10. Falsely convince itself of having committed a serious crime. One of the most complex and mysterious parts of the brain is how it deals with memories. Despite decades of research and case studies, we still only have pieces of the puzzle. We don't even know exactly which parts of the brain are responsible for storing and retrieving memories, let alone understanding how the brain processes them. A big part of that mystery is false memories, things that never happened but that you clearly remember. While we've known about the brain's ability to do this for a while, that's only the beginning of it. We're not just talking about convincing yourself about borrowed money that never happened but serious stuff like theft or even murder. In one study, 70% of subjects were falsely made to believe that they committed crimes like theft or assault with weapon by basic memory retrieval techniques in interviews. 10. Of course, there have also been cases where someone was incarcerated for a crime they confessed to despite having an alibi. We still don't quite understand why, or even how, the brain is so good at fooling even itself. Theories suggest that it may be because of its propensity toward filling up gaps in the recollection process, even if it's filling them with inaccurate information. Of course, there are many more things you, probably, didn't know about your mind. If you have more suggestions, let us know in the comments. If you like this video, leave us a blue shoot. Give it a thumbs up and share it with your friend, so we can keep making them. For more video like this, hit the subscribe button, and remember to click on the bell. Thank you to watch this video.